Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into something truly extraordinary. It's a first-hand account, a really vivid one, of consciousness, separating from the body and traveling
Yeah.
well way beyond.
Yeah, the source material is pretty unique. We're looking at excerpts from Sex, Ego, and Love by Gregor Reddy. And this isn't just theory, it's his own profound transcendental experience, which really underpins the whole book's philosophy.
Right, and what makes it stand out, you mentioned this before we started, is that Reddy himself says this wasn't your standard near-death experience, your typical NDE.
Exactly. He's very clear on that. He describes it as a full departure, like leaving Earth completely, traveling through space for a good 20, maybe 25 minutes at what felt like, well, incredible speed.
Wow.
It gives us this incredibly detailed, almost physical sense of consciousness, the leaving the material once behind, journeying out there, and crucially, coming back. It's powerful testimony for consciousness existing, independently of our physical bodies.
Okay, so let's frame our deep dive today. We want to unpack this journey, focusing on maybe three core themes that really jump out. First, the sheer intensity, the almost violent physical feeling of that separation and the trip itself. Second, we need to really explore the nature of this source or God entity he encountered.
There's a fascinating paradox there, isn't there?
Definitely, that friendly yet authoritarian dynamic.
And third, how this whole thing ties back to the death of the ego, which is central to his book, and what it suggests about, well, the possibility of reincarnation. And that connects to a whole field of research we should touch on.
Absolutely. We're stepping into territory where personal experience forces you to rethink reality, mortality, everything.
Yeah.
His description of traveling at, like, light speed,
Mm-hmm.
it sets a really high bar for understanding that transition between life and, well, what comes next.
And for anyone listening who wants to read the full account, the book again is Sex, Ego, and Love by Gregor Reddy. The ISBN is 978-1733-561822. Definitely worth checking out for the full context.
It really is. Okay, let's start at the beginning. The context is crucial here, right? Because this whole thing kicked off in a really accidental, frankly terrifying way.
Yeah, context is everything. We're talking about Gregor Reddy at age 13. It's a warm July afternoon. He's at Lake Balaton in Hungary. Pretty normal setting for something completely abnormal.
And it starts with a really dangerous teenage experiment, doesn't it? Glue sniffing.
Right. Industrial strength adhesive. A friend suggested, the way kids do, thinking it would alter perception, give them some kind of trip. They were using a plastic bag.
And that's where it went wrong. He inhaled too deeply, couldn't get the bag off his face in time. Suffocation.
Exactly. Severe suffocation. He started spasming, lost motor control completely, drifting in and out of consciousness in the usual sense. It was critical.
But here's the fascinating part he stresses. Amidst the panic and the physical shutdown, his sense of I, his core awareness, was totally intact.
Totally. He even remembers thinking, with this clear self-anger, oh boy, this time you really screwed up. How do you get out of this? That awareness, judging his body's failure as it was failing, that was the first big clue for him that his consciousness was something separate.
Wow. So not just confusion, but self-recrimination.
Right. Then came the departure itself. And the way he describes it, it's not gentle.
No, he talks about a giant vacuum funnel, right?
Yeah.
Having to pull his sense of I right out of his body.
Yeah, pulling him upwards into the sky. At first, it was kind of a wobbly, spiraling path, he says, but then the speed just ramped up incredibly quickly.
And this is where it really diverges from those, peaceful floating toward the light NDE stories.
Completely. Many NDEs describe a gentle drift, a serene tunnel. Reddy's experience. It started slow, then boom, tumultuous, fast, loud, bumpy, erratic. The Hungarian daylight just vanishes into total darkness, but it's a darkness filled with sensory overload.
It sounds absolutely harrowing, like being strapped to some out-of-control machine, not ascending spiritually. He mentions noises.
Yeah, mechanical rumbling, popping sounds. He compares it to being on an old, rickety wooden roller coaster, that sound of straining wood and metal under pressure.
Oh, wow.
That sound, constantly, mixed with flashing, disorienting colors and lights just whizzing past him. It's chaotic.
And the speed. He felt he hit the speed of light.
That's what it felt like. He describes it like being a remote-controlled fighter jet, having to actively dodge things, meteors, planets, gravitational fields. Like he was navigating this incredibly dense, dangerous, cosmic obstacle course.
Wait, hang on. He's 13, suffocating from glue fumes, and suddenly he's piloting a fighter jet through space debris. That's That's not serene. That sounds like the universe's most terrifying video game.
It really does, and that's a key point he makes, the almost physical, non-peaceful reality of the journey. Like actually moving through space involves intense, maybe even dangerous navigation. It wasn't just a floaty dream.
So his eye was basically in pure panic mode.
Absolute panic and disarray. He had zero control, felt instantly ripped away from his body, his world, just pure terror.
How long did this part last?
He estimated, despite the chaos, that this whole winding, dizzying journey took about 20 to 25 minutes. Though he admits time, speed, distance, they all became kind of meaningless, impossible to really measure out there.
But he still retains that estimate, that sense of duration.
Yeah, which is interesting, right? It suggests a kind of chronological reality to the event, even if his perception of time itself was warped. It's just this incredible story of, like, physical trauma leading to this high-speed cosmic transit.
Yeah.
It almost demands some kind of validation later on.
Okay, so after this absolutely terrifying high-speed roller coaster ride through space, he arrives somewhere. What was that like?
The contrast is immediate and stark. He described arriving at what he called a dimensional plane. Think 360 degrees of just infinite vastness stretching out further than sight. If the journey was pure chaos, the arrival was pure instant peace.
And the whole emotional tone just flipped.
Instantly. He said this vast space was immediately filled with this warm, transparent, intelligent light. And this light just lifted his panicked spirit into, his words, pure amazement.
Wow. From panic to amazement.
Yeah. He said he felt truly at home in a place where I belonged. That immediate sense of belonging after the terror and isolation of the journey is profound.
And this is where he encounters the source, or God.
Yes. He describes this radiant, omnipotent energy. It wasn't right in front of him, but hovering slightly to his right, maybe 60 or 70 feet away.
Does he describe what it looked like? I mean, how do you describe infinite energy?
He tries, which is interesting in itself. He says there wasn't a distinct shape, more like this grayish, almost white fog-like density, but it had presence. He perceived it as maybe 30 feet wide, 15 feet tall, but endless in depth. Not a figure, but this immense, boundless field of energy.
Not the old man with a beard, then.
Definitely not. And the communication was telepathic. He describes the feeling of it as friendly, yet also undeniably authoritarian. And that's the paradox we need to dig into.
Friendly and authoritarian. How does that work?
Well, the friendly part was this immediate, total acceptance, absolute compassion. There was zero blame, zero judgment about how he got there, the glue-sniffing incident, nearly killing himself. None of that mattered, just pure acceptance.
So the authoritarian part wasn't about judgment or control.
No, it seems like it was more about the undeniable reality and power of it, like encountering a fundamental law of the universe. It wasn't a judgmental authority figure, more like the absolute authority of existence itself. Pure truth.
Okay, I think I get that distinction. And for Gregor, given his background, this must have been shattering.
Utterly life-changing. He mentions in the book, very frankly, that up to that point, his young life was filled with being beaten, ignored, and belittled on a daily basis.
Yeah, 13.
Yeah. So to go from that daily trauma to this place where everything felt absolutely wondrous, where he was met with total acceptance, it's an almost unimaginable shift.
He said this entity felt closer than anything on Earth.
Much closer to my heart than anything I had ever known while living on Earth. This dimension was ultimate bliss, pure positivity. It completely rewired his perspective from earthly fear to cosmic belonging. It was proof for him that unconditional love wasn't just an idea, it was a fundamental reality somewhere else.
And then, in this state of bliss, he's presented with a choice.
The ultimate choice, really. The source entity asked him telepathically how he wanted to continue his existence. Option A, return to his physical body back on Earth. Option B, stay right there in that state of perfect peace and bliss.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
He says it became harder and harder the longer he stayed. He was falling deeper in love with this new reality. It wasn't an easy decision at all, especially given what waited for him back home.
So he's in this place of unimaginable peace, accepted unconditionally, offered the chance to stay. But he chooses to come back. Why? His reasoning is quite surprising, isn't it?
It's incredibly practical, almost pragmatic, which seems strange for such a spiritual moment, but it's key to his understanding.
He didn't choose based on, like, a feeling of unfinished business or love for family.
No. His stated reason was purely about the body itself. He reasoned that the body was only 13 years old, very young, and, crucially, he felt he was on the cusp of gaining independence from the abuse he was suffering.
So it was almost like a resource management decision.
Exactly. He explicitly concluded it would be a waste of resource and energy to discard such a young and healthy body. He saw it as a viable tool, still perfectly good for future development, for experiencing independence. It shows this deep, almost inherent understanding of the body's value to the soul.
That practicality, it says a lot about the source entity too, doesn't it? That it would accept that kind of reasoning.
Absolutely. And this is where Reti really contrasts his experience with religious dogma. The source didn't try to influence him, didn't wield its power to force a decision, it didn't demand respect or worship.
Just presented the option.
Right. Communicated efficiently, humbly, he says. Offered unprecedented acceptance. It was like, here's the situation, here are the choices, what makes sense for your journey. Almost like a cosmic guidance counselor presenting resource allocation options for the soul's curriculum.
And he describes the energy as genderless.
Yes, genderless, communicating with this relaxed, compassionate, vibrating energy. And here's something amazing. After Gregor explained his very practical reason for returning, the source actually confirmed his decision, praised him for making a wise choice.
It had a sense of humor, partnership.
Seems like it, which again is so different from the image of a stern, demanding God found in many religions. This was about partnership, wisdom, even a bit of levity.
And you mentioned a crucial detail about when the source fully opened up.
Yes, this is critical. He realized the source only revealed its full nature, its full warmth and connection, after he had made his decision to return. He concluded it was because the source absolutely did not want to influence his choice. It respected his free will so completely that it held back its full glory, you could say, until the decision was freely made. Ultimate respect for his autonomy.
That's incredible. So the decision is made. Time to go back. Was leaving hard.
Emotionally, yes. He says it was difficult to leave that bliss, but the source didn't let him linger. It was like, okay, decision made, back you go, straight back.
And the return trip? Was it as chaotic as the way up?
Just as dramatic physically, he says, but totally different emotionally. He felt like he was falling backwards into a giant water funnel or a slide, winding, spinning, speeding up again, this high-speed tumble back toward Earth.
But he wasn't scared this time.
Completely unafraid. That's the key shift. He felt this deep inner peace because the journey up had already shown him the core truth. The body could die, but his consciousness, his I, couldn't. He'd already faced that separation and survived.
So the fear was gone.
Utterly. And that led to the central realization, the philosophical core of the whole experience for him. There is no such thing as dying, only changing.
Changing, like changing clothes.
Exactly. He concluded the soul needs these periodic changes, these transformations. It needs to wear different costumes, bodies, and social roles. The body is just a temporary outfit, an apparatus for learning and experiencing.
That clicks perfectly with that John Lennon quote, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of death because I don't believe in it. It's just getting out of one car and into another.
Precisely. It becomes a mechanical shift, not the terrifying end of everything. It's about understanding what you actually are.
Which sounds like what Eckhart Tolle talks about too. Death is a stripping away of all that is not you. Die before you die, and find that there is no death.
Yes. By facing the source, by making that choice, Gregor effectively did die before dying. He found that core, indestructible part of himself. And when you lose that ultimate fear, the fear of annihilation,
Then maybe you can actually live. Like Mark Twain said, the fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time.
it unlocks everything. It takes real courage to live fully, maybe more than to just passively accept death. Robert Cody put it bluntly, have the courage to live. Anyone can die.
And that final image from Khalil Gibran. Dying is melting into the sun, truly dancing when the earth claims your limbs. It turns it from an ending into a release, a transformation.
That's the perspective shift Gregor gained. Death becomes not an enemy, but a natural, perhaps even beautiful part of the soul's ongoing journey of change.
Okay, so the return journey is happening. He's falling back, unafraid this time. How does the reentry work? How does he get back in the body?
He describes the approach needing real precision. His awareness shifted. He started seeing things from a bird's eye view again, but slowing down dramatically now, like a spaceship docking, he said. Very careful maneuvering.
And he sees his body.
Yeah, spots it down below. Still in that little rowboat tied to the pier, hidden among those tall reeds. But crucially, while he's up there, slowing down, he also sees another pier nearby.
This is the proof part, right?
This is the objective validation. From above, out of his body, he clearly picks out a different pier, one that was L-shaped, and had a red rowboat and a blue rowboat tied to its end. He specifically clocked those details while still discarnate.
Wow. He was gathering evidence.
Totally. It's like his consciousness knew it needed proof.
Yeah.
So he's hovering over his own body, preparing to reconnect, and then he describes this loud pop, like a big firecracker going off.
Yeah.
And instantly, awareness snapped back into the body.
The pop. The sound of reconnection.
That's how he interprets it, the sound of the soul, that core consciousness locking back into its physical housing.
And the feeling. Coming back into a body that had just nearly suffocated.
The immediate sensation, he says, was overwhelming appreciation. The body felt like a jaw-dropping miracle. Suddenly, this thing he'd almost discarded felt incredibly precious.
How did that manifest?
He describes just rubbing his fingers together in front of his eyes, utterly fascinated by the sensory input, by the simple ability to decide to move his fingers and watch them obey. Pure wonder at the mechanics of it all.
It changed his whole view of the physical form.
Completely. He realized the body is this very complex, automated, super computerized tool. Something he had earned, he felt. A necessary vehicle for his consciousness to actually do things, to express itself in this material world. Huge appreciation for the hardware, you could say.
But after all this, cosmic travel, seeing God, appreciating his fingers, he couldn't just go back to normal, could he?
No way. He felt intensely introspective afterwards. Said he couldn't really handle mundane human interaction for a while, but he had this burning need, this absolute focus. He had to check about that other peer, the L-shaped one.
He had to validate the data.
Exactly. It's the closest thing to applying the scientific method you could get in a situation like this. He had an observation made from an impossible vantage point, and he needed to verify it in physical reality.
So what did he do?
He went down the main pier and then saw he'd have to get over a locked gate with barbed wire to reach the area where he'd seen the other pier from above. He actually cut himself climbing it, but he was determined, and he found it. The pier took that sharp 90-degree turn, exactly the L shape he'd seen. His heart must have been pounding.
Them boats.
Right there, tied to the end, one red rowboat, one blue rowboat. Exactly as he had observed them from the sky, while completely outside his physical body and its senses.
That's undeniable proof for him.
Absolutely. He said he just broke down in tears of joy right there. Because it wasn't a dream, it wasn't a hallucination from the glue, it was real. His consciousness, his eye, had traveled, observed objective reality from outside the body, and brought back verifiable proof. That moment cemented everything for him.
Yeah.
His soul was a traveler.
And this entire incredible experience, the journey, the source, the proof, this becomes the foundation for his whole philosophy in the book, Sex, Ego, and Love. He connects it directly to the death of the ego.
Right. He argues that the experience brought him much closer to ego death because, fundamentally, the ego operates on fear. Fear of not enough, fear of what others think, fear of pain, but underneath it all, the biggest fear is death, oblivion.
And his experience took that fear away.
Exactly. By facing death and realizing it was just a change, by meeting a loving, non-judgmental source, the ego's primary weapon, the fear of death, was neutralized. And when you take away the biggest fear, he argues, all the other smaller fears just diminish dramatically. Social fears, anxieties, doubts, they lose their power.
Okay, I see the connection to ego death. But how does that link specifically to the sex and love parts of the title?
The connection he makes is that conquering the fear of death is the gateway to living fearlessly and authentically in all areas, including intimacy and self-expression. If the ego's grip is loosened, if you're not constantly afraid of judgment from others or from a punitive God, then you're free.
Free to be yourself.
Free to explore your own nature, your desires, your connections with others without the shame, repression, and fear that the ego and often religious dogma impose, especially around sexuality and love. If you know you're an eternal consciousness in a temporary body and the source is fundamentally accepting, then things like fearing eternal damnation for being who you are, they just dissolve.
So liberation from the fear of death leads to liberation in life, including sexual and emotional liberation.
That's the core argument, and this is where he really contrasts the source he met with the God presented by most organized religions. The source he experienced had no desire to control, no need for worship.
Which is the opposite of most religious structures.
Completely. His take is pretty blunt. God, the real source, is too cool to be what he calls a lying and forceful narcissism demanding worship.
Wow, strong words.
Yeah. He believes that the whole concept of needing to worship a deity comes from human ego. It's our egos projecting onto the divine, creating power structures, control mechanisms, and systems of oppression within religious groups. Dogma, for him, is mostly about control, not connection.
So the source isn't confined to any one religion.
Not at all. He believes it connects directly to everyone individually. It grants freedom, wants us to appreciate ourselves, express ourselves creatively. In fact, he argues the source needs us, its materialized representations, to experience individuality and creativity through our physical bodies in this world.
Needs us. Why?
This gets into that fascinating polarity versus singularity idea. It's fundamental to understanding why we're even here in these bodies on this planet.
Okay, let's spend a moment on this. Polarity here, singularity there. What's the difference and why does it matter?
Redheis suggests the realm he visited, the source realm, exists in singularity. That means no opposition, no positive versus negative, no good versus evil, no action and reaction in the same way we experience it. Think of it like pure, unchanging light. Perfect, but static.
Okay, pure being, no friction.
Right, but growth, development, learning, they seem to require friction. They require contrast, resistance. They require making choices that have real consequences.
So Earth, the material world, operates on polarity.
Exactly. We need the duality here. Good and bad, light and dark, positive and negative. These aren't cosmic mistakes. They're the necessary ingredients. The contrast creates the friction needed for consciousness to learn, to develop, to make meaningful choices. Choosing good only has meaning if bad is also an option, right?
So negativity isn't necessarily evil, it's just part of the curriculum.
It's a necessary component for learning responsibility, for developing wisdom through experience. We are here in this realm of polarity to navigate the contrast, make those tough choices, and express our unique individuality in a dynamic way that's simply not possible in the perfect static singularity of the source.
That really reframes things like suffering or difficulty. They become necessary tools for growth.
Essential curriculum tools, yeah. Which, when you think about it that way, it kind of explains why a loving source would allow a world with so much apparent negativity. It's the training ground.
And it makes sense then why someone like Bill Maher might joke, let's face it, God has a big ego problem. Why do we always have to worship him? Reti's experience suggests the ego problem isn't with God. It's with the human systems projecting their need for control onto God.
Precisely. The demand for worship is a human construct, not a divine need in this view. It kind of encourages that defiant confidence Winston Churchill had, I am ready to meet my maker. Whether my maker is prepared for the great ordeal of meeting me is another matter.
Huh. Yeah, that comes from knowing the maker isn't actually judging you by human standards.
Right. And it all comes back to living fully now. Like Pope Paul VI apparently said, somebody should tell us right at the start of our lives that we are dying. Whatever you want to do, do it now. There are only so many tomorrows. Gregor got that message loud and clear in the most intense way imaginable.
Okay, this brings us to maybe the biggest implication of Gregor's whole experience. Reincarnation.
Yeah, the leap is pretty logical from his experience. If consciousness, the soul, the I, can demonstrably leave the body, travel independently, retain memory, observe objective reality, and then successfully reattach to the same body,
then the idea of it attaching to a different body after the first one is no longer usable seems much less far-fetched.
Exactly. It moves reincarnation from the realm of pure faith or speculation into something mechanically plausible based on his first-hand validated experience. If the soul needs different costumes for its curriculum, as he put it, his journey showed the mechanism for changing them.
And he suggests there are real moral implications if we accepted this.
Big time. He argues that if humanity generally accepted reincarnation as likely, or even just possible, our entire approach to ethics would shift. We'd likely be far more compassionate towards other people, other animals.
Because they might be us next time, or we might have been them before.
Right. And we'd take much better care of the planet, knowing it's literally our future home, the place we'll keep returning to for these lessons in polarity. It fosters a much longer-term, more interconnected sense of responsibility.
It's interesting, too, you mentioned earlier, this isn't a totally new idea, even within traditions we think we know. Gnostic texts.
Yeah, there's evidence, particularly in texts like the Gospel of Mary and the Gospel of Thomas, that were excluded from the official Bible, suggesting that Jesus himself taught about reincarnation, about the soul's journey through multiple lives, ideas that were later suppressed, likely because they challenged the control structures based on a single life followed by eternal reward or punishment.
So Gregor's very modern, almost sci-fi sounding experience taps into these ancient, perhaps suppressed spiritual truths. But it also finds surprising resonance with modern research, doesn't it?
Absolutely. His personal account, while unique, aligns remarkably well with decades of systematic, often quite rigorous, research into NDEs, past lives, and the nature of consciousness after death. We're not just talking anecdotes here. There are researchers who've tried to bring scientific methodology to this.
Like who? Who are the key players in trying to study this systematically?
Well, the pioneer, the real groundbreaker in terms of rigorous methodology, was Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist.
Right, I've heard his name. What did he do?
Stevenson spent decades meticulously documenting cases, thousands of them, primarily of young children, usually between 2 and 5 years old, who spontaneously started talking about a previous life. 20 cases suggestive of reincarnation is his famous early work.
Spontaneously, not under hypnosis or anything.
No, that's the key. These kids would just start talking about being someone else, living somewhere else, remembering names of family members, details about the place, and often very specific details about how they died in that alleged past life.
And Stevenson just collected the stories.
He did much more. His method was painstaking. He'd record every single claim the child made. Then he and his team would try to verify those claims. They'd travel to the towns or villages the child named, often remote places, search birth and death records, interview surviving family members of the person the child claimed to be, trying to match the child's specific, often obscure statements to documented facts.
Just like Gregor needing to check the L-shaped pier. Verification.
Exactly. Stevenson focused relentlessly on objective verification. He also documented corresponding birthmarks or physical defects on the children that seemed to match wounds, often fatal ones, on the body of the claimed previous personality. It was incredibly detailed, systematic work.
Trying to rule out coincidence or parental coaching?
Completely. His methodology was designed to be as rigorous as possible in such a difficult field. And Tom Schroeder, a journalist, wrote a great book called Old Souls that followed Stevenson in the field, giving a really accessible look at how meticulous and objective that research process actually was.
Okay, so Stevenson focused on kids remembering past lives. What about NDEs, like Gregor's initial experience?
That's where Dr. Raymond Moody comes in. His book, Life After Life, basically put the term near-death experience on the map back in the 70s. Moody wasn't focused on past lives, but on what people experienced when they were clinically dead or very close to it this time around.
The tunnel, the light.
Yeah, he collected hundreds of accounts and identified those common elements. The feeling of peace, leaving the body, moving through a tunnel towards a bright light, meeting deceased relatives or beings of light, the life review. He documented the pattern.
And then there's the therapy angle, right?
Yeah.
People using hypnosis.
Right. Dr. Brian Weiss is probably the best known there. His book, Many Lives, Many Masters, was huge. Weiss was a very traditional, Yale-trained psychiatrist, initially deeply skeptical of all this.
What changed his mind?
A patient. Under hypnosis, trying to treat her severe anxiety and phobias, she spontaneously started recalling apparent past lives. And the key was, the details she recalled seemed directly linked to her present-day symptoms, and recalling them provided immediate therapeutic breakthroughs that conventional therapy hadn't achieved. It convinced him of the reality and therapeutic value of past life regression.
And someone took that even further, looking between lives.
That would be Dr. Michael Newton, a hypnotherapist who wrote Journey of Souls. Newton's work focused specifically on regressing people not just to past lives, but to the period between the interlife, you could call it.
What did people report from there?
His subjects, under deep hypnosis, consistently described similar things. Arriving back in the spirit world, being greeted by guides, undergoing a life review with a council of wise beings, planning the next life, choosing the body, the challenges, the lessons needed for their soul's progression. It provides this incredible, detailed map of the soul's journey between the costumes Gregor talked about.
So Gregor's single, intense, verified experience acts almost like a microcosm, a personal validation of the core ideas these different researchers have been exploring for decades through thousands of cases.
Exactly. His ability to leave, observe objectively, and return provides that crucial mechanistic underpinning. It makes the whole framework seem more coherent. It really resonates with that quote from Garth Stein. He died that day because his body had served its purpose. His soul had done what it came to do, learned what it came to learn, and then was free to leave. There's a purpose to each life's costume.
And if you really take that on board, if you believe the costume is temporary and the journey is long, it changes how you want to wear the costume now. Forget arriving safely at the grave.
Right. It's that Hunter S. Thompson attitude. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, "Wow, what a ride!"
Embrace the polarity. Use the vehicle.
Use the vehicle and understand, as Stanislav Grof put it, that understanding death or change isn't morbid. It's the key. For any culture which is primarily concerned with meaning, the study of death must be central. For an understanding of death is the key to liberation in life.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. What are the absolute key takeaways from Gregor Ritty's journey, as detailed in Sex, Ego, and Love? I mean, first, that the body is this incredible, almost miraculous tool we've earned for being here.
Definitely. Huge appreciation for the physical. Second, that death as an ending is an illusion. It's transformation, change, moving between states or costumes.
And third, that the ultimate source, God, whatever you call it, is fundamentally compassionate, non-judgmental, respects free will utterly, and operates outside the drama of our human polarities.
Yes. And the core realization linking it all is that the soul's proven ability, in his case, to leave, observe reality, and reattach makes the whole concept of reincarnation and the research supporting it highly plausible. It's not just faith, there's experiential evidence.
And knowing that, or even just strongly suspecting it, has the power to diminish the ego's control, especially the fear of death and judgment.
Which in turn opens the door to more authentic living, deeper love, real intimacy, and liberated self-expression, free from crippling fear. It's empowering.
So that brings us to the final thought, connecting back to that idea of polarity versus singularity. Gregor realized the source needs us to be here in this world of contrast, to express individuality and creativity, to learn through friction in a way that's impossible in that perfect static source realm.
Right. We are its hands and feet, its way of experiencing dynamism and consequence.
So if that's our purpose here, to navigate polarity, to learn, to create, to express ourselves fully as individuals representing that source energy, then the question for all of us listening becomes,
What boundaries are we still holding on to unnecessarily? What fears, what dogmas we've internalized, what anxieties, what parts of our ego are we letting stop us from that full, essential, intended expression? What's preventing us from truly appreciating and using this incredible, temporary costume we call a body right here, right now, in this vital realm of polarity?
a powerful question to ponder. It loops right back to the book's core themes, moving beyond the ego to fully embrace sex, love, and life itself. Definitely something to think about long after this deep dive ends.